Welcome to Candy Coated Insights Unwrapping Excellence, with expert tips, tools, and techniques to get the most out of candy.
Good day and a warm welcome from myself. My name is Graham Braybrook. I'm the Customer Success Manager for UK and Ireland, and it is my privilege to bring you today's very first session of Candy Coated Insights. What are we looking at covering during this session? The agenda, starting off with an introduction to Candy Coated Insights. Why are we doing this? Candy Support Portal and the changes that have been made on the Candy Support Portal, and the introduction to the Candy Support Portal, should I say. Looking at things like our Candy and recent developments, and lastly, our Candy roadmap. To start off, why are we doing this? What has prompted us to start these Candy Coated Insights? It's very simple, and it is for you. It is for our users. It's about knowledge and sharing that knowledge. It's about communication and streamlining information to everyone. Aiming it to keep it as short and sweet as possible. These webinars are aimed to be high value in the short amount of time possible. So what is it that we're going to be discussing? Things like RIB updates, sharing changes in Candy, Candy roadmaps, Candy developments, harnessing customer feedback, which is something that we really are trying hard to get, because that is it is fundamental to changes in our system, and it's fundamental to changes in the applications and our processes, our peripheral processes as well. And lastly, tips and tricks, and of course the features and functionality. Who are these for? Well, it's for any estimator, new and experienced, so whether you've used Candy for a couple of weeks or whether you've used it for decades. Hopefully these Candy Coated Insights will share a couple of things and obviously add value to your user and your ability to use the software. Quantity surveyors, if you're looking at updating or you're looking at using Candy for post-tender control, project managers as well, and lastly, any Candy user who wants to extend their knowledge of the actual application. Secondly, an introduction to our support portal. I'm sure a lot of users have seen that we have kind of migrated to the support portal, and there are lots of benefits that this portal brings to our processes and our support. So firstly, looking at faster response times, the ability to for portal tickets to be prioritized or routed more efficiently, as the routing process of emails can be delayed as they go through the different departments. And of course, sometimes if it's a direct email to somebody and they're on leave or they're sick, you have the possibility of these things slipping through the cracks. Of course, transparency, the ability for customers can track the progress and status of current cases. Customers can look up the historical and previous tickets for the purposes of referencing. Cases can be created anytime, even outside business hours. So that's something that has been very important to our support and any Candy support throughout the years. That's of course very important. And specifically if we're looking at our industry that we're in. Self-help. So we have 24/7 customers on-demand access to knowledge-based content, and this content we've worked very hard on getting as much information in there for our users to view, things like our articles, user guides, did you know guides, our webinars, and things like even this Candy Coated Insight will be available for you to use. But it empowering you to really find your answers on their own, and if not, the information is there, and if not, create the ticket, and you'll be assisted on the portal. How do we access the portal? Well, firstly, if we're in with the Candy application, we have our Help Center menu at the top right of your screen. This very easy by following the prompts, opening your browser, and that of course will lead you to the support portal. Being able to scan that QR code that you see on your screen, you could do that. And of course, what you see when you access the portal is which application you're going to be looking at. Of course, in our case, it would be RIB Candy. What does the portal look like? Well, this is a first view of it, or the first landing page. So being able to select the portal, getting support. Is it a specific feature that I'm looking at? So do I want to find out a little bit more about QTO, planning, estimating? That information is all there. Also looking at things like news and events, release notes that we offer on Candy development, any events happening in your region. And lastly, learning what training courses are happening, and if I want to access any webinars or previously produced webinars, you can select that, which will lead you to the table of contents, or as I was talking about, the content, and you view any produced webinar, historical webinar on the system and on the portal. This brings me up to the next major category in today's Candy Coated Insight, which is our recent developments. And a lot of time, a lot of emphasis has been put into the release of this. Of course, these go through some really important testing, alpha testing, beta testing, user testing. So before we release any of these, of course, they are thoroughly tested for our users. In no specific order, starting off with master detail comparisons. So we now have the ability to compare our master net rates versus our current project net rates, comparing to our master resource rates versus our current project resource rates. And I think for a lot of people that have used Candy for a long time, I think this is a very nice addition to the system and to the software. Also, we have our read-only planner view. So this is a free viewer for consultants and clients to view Candy programs. They do not need to adjust, just to view Candy programs. And this is a free viewer. Please get in touch with us if you feel that this could be beneficial in your contract or to your client or your consultants. Of course, the addition to our final cost quantities, and this is the additional control, or more accurate control, for final forecasting for the project. And I think this adds a lot of value to the Candy post-tender, as well as the cost and allowable side of things of the system. Of course, previous versions of Candy, we have always had one, let's say, carbon factor, which we've allocated to a resource. We now have broken that down into A1 to A5, and this is to calculate our total embodied carbon for the project more accurately by the use of this. And of course, with this goes a lot of reporting and nice tools and features and functions on the reporting side of the carbon. A lot of emphasis has also been put on macros. So now we have the ability to progress macros at post-tender stage. The next item is new materials adjudicator. I'm sure you have seen a substantial change from our old material adjudicator to our new one. And this is really incorporating updated UX and user interface. And this is really to enhance the speed and flexibility of the material supplier comparison tool. And I'm sure you've seen that on the subcontract comparison tool as well. And this just allows us a better fundamental, or a better substructure, or a better structure to develop faster in these categories in the future. Another nice new aspect is our JSON export. So this is a file extension, and this file extension is fairly straightforward for ERP systems to use, or third party to use. So if there was information that we wanted to share between Candy and an ERP system or a third-party application, you do have the ability now to extract a JSON file, and that has all the valuable estimation data for you to upload into the third-party applications. What is on the roadmap? What is coming? And I think to start off with this discussion, our vision for the Candy roadmap and development is, of course, to continuously innovate, deliver, and support Candy as a premium first principle estimating, time management, and project control system. And I think it's important to note that there are many processes that happen when we look at these developments and when we plan these roadmaps. There are numerous due diligence procedures that are completed, both regionally and globally. Of course, we hold everyone's enhancement requests in the highest regard, and if we could develop all these requests, we would do that. But unfortunately, it's all about capacity. It's all about prioritizing what's best for the system. And there are a couple of questions that we ask ourselves. What's best for the system, and also what is best for our global user base? Is it in line with current construction standards and practices? Are we developing for the future? And lastly, it is about the impact it will have on the integrity of the software. Software that has been used for decades, software that is renowned for its quality and the value that it adds to our users on their daily activities, on their daily pricing activities. And that is vital. These are vital questions and steps that we take in order to come up with our roadmaps. So what is planned for the rest of the year? Firstly, this is in no specific order either. So firstly, our show master worksheets. So this will allow our users to view worksheets of the master within the project that we're currently in, which I'm sure a lot of you would be really excited to hear about, because it's something that has been discussed and requested for quite some time. Finally, we're getting the traction to be able to allocate it and include it onto the systems. Our subcontract manager turnaround document. This will allow users the ability to import subcontractor progress quantities on the subcontract manager. The enhancing of the JSON export, as I mentioned previously, in terms of what has been developed, this is now going to be released with further enhancements to that, with further inclusions of estimation data and valuation data. Bill and final quantity variables. So this will allow users to use the bill and final quantity from the current item being priced as a variable on the worksheet. The ability to progress macro cost worksheets. Like I mentioned on the previous slide, we have done a lot of work in enhancing the macros in terms of post-tender functionality, and this will allow us just added ability to update cost worksheets for those macro items. And lastly, looking at additional columns when importing revised data for existing activities, things like production units and quantities will be able to be imported. What is planned for 2026? And once again, in no specific order. Firstly, our QTO package backing up and recover. So this will allow users to back up and restore QTO packages between identical jobs. The ability to have multiple subcontract manager certificates. So this is an option to run multiple subcontract managers at once and have multiple certificates out of the subcontract manager. Importing our cost quantity. As I alluded previously, the cost quantity or the final cost quantity, really just promoting more accurate final forecasting, and the ability to import to date as well as the final cost quantities is being enhanced. The XER import. So this is the ability for to import XER program backups. As you know, a lot of third-party applications can export to a certain file extension called an XER. This will allow us to import the programs from those third-party applications. Our Candy data services, and this is very exciting for a release possibly the first half of 2026. Now this is the minimal viable product for our API, and this is really looking at a further enhancement of the temporary solution of the JSON, but it's now an automated way of extracting Candy data or that estimating data that we have, and it allows for third-party applications or ERP systems to now extract that data for BI reporting, for business reporting and business analytics. And I think that's going to be a really nice introduction next year to our suite of tools. And lastly, the site plan comparison tool, which will allow us to compare multiple programs within one job. That is the last, and that brings us to the end of our very first session of Candy Coated Insights. Thank you very much for your time. There will be a QR code after following shortly. Please get in touch with us. I would love some feedback. We would love to get your feedback on the session. And also, let's have a look at what we can introduce and give you for the next session of the Candy Coated Insights. So from myself, Graham Braybrook, thank you very much for joining me, and all the very best.
Thanks for joining Candy Coated Insights. See you next time. Until then, keep unwrapping excellence with Candy.